With all the different workout routines, supplements, and secret techniques to choose from, building muscle as a naturally skinny guy can get a bit overwhelming. While our instincts are to mimic what the big, jacked guys are doing in the gym, in most cases, it's the reason we're stuck and confused with little results to show for our efforts. And no, it has nothing to do with your genetics, it has nothing to do with having a fast metabolism, and it definitely has nothing to do with how small your wrists are. Barring any diseases, if you can eat and lift weights, then you can gain weight and achieve a respectable physique. The reality is anyone can walk into the gym, push some weight around, and build some muscle. But if you want to maximize your results and build the most muscle possible in the least amount of time, then you have to be more strategic. That's why I put together this list of 7 must-follow muscle-building tips to help skinny guys bulk up fast. If you can apply everything I'm about to share with you in this video, you'll never struggle to gain weight or put on muscle again. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Tip number 1, focus on strength. Progressive overload is the act of gradually increasing the total amount of work you're performing. In other words, getting progressively stronger each time you step foot in the gym. And before you say that your goal is to build muscle and not strength, consider this. A 2014 study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning compared doing 3 sets of 10 versus 7 sets of 3. If you guessed that the 3x10 group gained more muscle, you'd be wrong. Not only did the 7x3 group gain the same amount of muscle as the group doing 3x10, they also gained significantly more strength. And because progressive overload is the main pathway by which we build muscle, it makes sense to focus on strength when the goal is actually hypertrophy. Tip number 2, prioritize mass builders, aka compound lifts. A compound lift or a multi-joint movement refers to an exercise that engages 2 or more joints. For example, the bench press, squat, deadlift, etc. Because you're involving multiple joints, you can train more muscles at the same time. The main benefits of training with compound movements are twofold. 1, you're accumulating more volume for multiple muscle groups, and 2, because multiple muscle groups are involved, you'll be able to use heavier loads. Now, I'm not suggesting that you skip out on isolation movements completely, but rather that the majority of your lifting should focus on heavy compound movements. A good recommendation would be to perform compound lifts for 75% of your training, and isolation movements for the remaining 25% in order to strengthen any weak links. Tip number 3, stay in the 6 to 12 rep range, mostly. Lifting weights is not about how much you can stand the burn from lactic acid buildup. It's not about how sweaty your shirt is when you walk out of the gym, and it's certainly not about how big you can make yourself appear with a pump. One study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research took 18 experienced lifters and randomly assigned them into one of 2 groups. The first group was performing 25 to 35 reps, and the second stayed within 8 to 12 reps. Both groups performed 3 sets of 7 different exercises, 3 times per week. Researchers found no significant differences in muscle mass between the 2 groups. However, they also found the higher load group, between 8 to 12 reps, made significantly greater strength gains. Now, before you suggest that high rep training is just as good, consider this. Not only did the lighter load group have to perform 3 times the work to achieve the same amount of muscle growth, but they also experienced significantly less increase in strength. Now let's look at what happens when volume is equal. A study published in the European Journal of Applied Physiology compared low rep training between 3 and 5 reps, intermediate rep training 9 to 11 reps, and high rep training 20 to 28 reps, with total volume being equal. They found that the low rep group and the intermediate rep group made significantly greater muscle gains than the high rep group. What does this mean? It means intensity matters, and if you want to maximize your muscle gains, you have to lift heavy enough to stimulate muscle growth. This is why I recommend doing 75% of your training in the 6 to 12 rep range. Tip number 4, hit each muscle 2 times per week. One study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research compared 2 groups. The first group trained 1 day per week, while the other group trained 3 days per week. Despite total weekly volume being equal, the group that trained 3 days per week saw significantly more gains in lean muscle mass than the group that trained 1 day per week. Another more recent meta-analysis concluded that the current body of evidence indicates that frequencies of training twice a week promote superior hypertrophic outcomes than once a week. This is likely due to more frequently elevated muscle protein synthesis. Studies suggest that about 24 hours following a workout, MPS is more than doubled. By the 36-hour mark, however, it's dropped back down to its baseline rate. It's not hard to see that despite volume being equal, the person spending more time synthesizing protein will produce greater muscle growth. And practically speaking, if you perform 16 sets for one muscle group in a day, any set after the 8th set will be limited by fatigue. But if you just split those same 16 sets into 2 days of 8 sets each, for example, then you'd actually be performing more volume because your muscles would be fresher. This is why I recommend you hit each muscle at least twice a week. Tip number 5, back off. According to the fitness fatigue model, over the course of your training block, your fitness improves, but due to all the workload, fatigue also slowly creeps up. Your rest days are simply not enough to dissipate this residual fatigue. So eventually your fatigue gets too high and limits your performance. If you want to keep pushing hard and actually progressing, you need to take a week to deload in order to reduce fatigue. A deload week is a week of active recovery in which you reduce the volume and intensity in the gym. The benefits include reduced fatigue, reduced psychological stress, joint relief, and improved muscle and strength gains. Now, if you're afraid to take some time away from training hard, consider this. One study published in the European Journal of Applied Physiology compared lifters bench pressing for 24 weeks continuously versus those bench pressing for 6 weeks on and 3 weeks off for the same 24 weeks. After 24 weeks, both groups gained the same amount of muscle and strength. In other words, it took the periodic group only 18 weeks of training to achieve the same results as the continuous group did in 24 weeks. Had the periodic group taken just 1 week to deload, rather than 3 weeks away from the gym completely, I'd bet the results would have been significantly better. Personally, I'd recommend taking a deload week every 4 to 12 weeks. A simple way to do this would be to decrease the intensity by 10% and reduce the sets and reps by about 50%. Think of it like taking one small step back to take 2 big steps forward. Tip number 6, prioritize sleep. Research published in Auckland, New Zealand found that sleep-deprived lifters' time to exhaustion was much shorter. In other words, sets felt more difficult and they couldn't do as many reps. The research team believes that this is due to impaired glucose metabolism. Basically, if you can't break down glucose in your body because you don't get enough sleep, your body won't be able to properly utilize its own fuel to perform. And whether cutting or bulking, you obviously want to lose or gain the right type of weight. Well, sleep is crucial for that too. A 2010 paper compared 2 groups. One group is sleeping 8.5 hours each night and the other is sleeping just 5.5 hours. Although both groups lost the same amount of weight, the sleep-deprived group lost 55% less fat and 60% more muscle. Not good. We can help explain this by taking a look at how your hormones are negatively affected by lack of sleep. One of the many hormones affected is testosterone. Much of the working population has their sleep cut down to just 5 hours per night. In a 2015 study published in the Journal of American Medical Association, they found that just 1 week of sleep restriction cut testosterone by 10 to 15% during daytime hours. To put it simply, if you're not getting enough high-quality sleep each night, you'll never maximize your muscle, strength, or fat loss results. And if your training and nutrition are in order, yet you're failing to see meaningful results, the answer could lie in your sleep. No pun intended. Tip number 7, be consistent. If your workout program requires you to train 4 days per week for 12 weeks, that's 48 total workouts in the next 3 months. If you skip 1 day each week, you will have completed just 36 workouts, a total of 3 weeks worth of work. That's taking the workload that you could have done in 12 weeks and extending it into 15 or more. Extend that into 6 months and now the progress you could have made in 24 weeks takes 36 instead. This is why having a set program and sticking to it consistently is key. Failing to stay consistent can turn a 1-year journey into a 5-year journey or worse, result in a loss of motivation that derails you completely from your goals. So, there you have it. 7 must-known muscle-building tips for skinny guys who want to bulk up fast. Keep in mind these are just training tips, and without proper nutrition, none of this will matter. So if you're looking for a done-for-you training and nutrition guide, guaranteed to add slabs of muscle to your frame in the next 90 days, then claim a free copy of my book, Bulk Up Fast. The book has already been paid for. All you have to do is cover the small shipping fee. Just click the link in the description, tell me where to ship it, and I'll send it to you anywhere in the world. And if you're enjoying the content and want to support the channel, all we ask is that you click the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you don't miss another video. Peace.